A lot of hobbies are expensive up front, but sewing doesn't have to be. Hey, welcome back to Mindful May. My name's May and I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, it's probably because you are one of the dozens of people who DM me and ask, what do I need to start sewing? My first response to these messages is always, you do not need anything fancy. I had very humble beginnings as a starter seamstress. I worked in my sister's basement on a borrowed sewing machine with a beginner sewing kit. And now 2 years later, I have a very basic model of a sewing machine and that same kit that I started with. With these tools, I have made everything behind me and so much more. So today I'm going to show you all the materials that I would buy if I had to start over again. And because I'm thrifty, I'm hoping that I can gather everything for less than $50. My favorite craft store is Hobby Lobby, so that is where I'm going to be buying all of my supplies today, except for my sewing machine, which I'm going to check some thrift stores for. Starting with the sewing machine, which is the most important part. You truly don't need anything crazy expensive. I have seriously the base model of the Singer, and I've made coats, dresses, tops, scrunchies, bags, fanny packs. Really anything that I've wanted to make, I've been able to make on this machine. I see sewing machines at thrift stores all the time. If you want to go this route, I would just suggest two things. One, check your thrift store's return policy and make sure that you can return it if it is faulty. Two, test the machine yourself. Most thrift stores have a station where you can test electronics, so I would just pick up the machine, plug it in, hold down the foot, make sure that the needle goes up and down. If that's working, you're in a good spot. At this particular thrift store, I found an amazing Singer machine for $25. So in my scenario where I'm buying a whole new sewing setup, I'm going to buy this machine. $25 for a Singer sewing machine. The next two items you're going to need is an iron and an ironing surface. I admit, I did not know the importance of an iron until about a year into my journey. And let me tell you, things just work out smoother when you use an iron. It's really hard to cut wrinkled fabric, it's really hard to pin together wrinkled fabric, and it's really hard to sew wrinkled fabric. So please, if you don't have an iron and an ironing board, go to a thrift store. I see them there all the time, but you really should have these on hand. If not, go steal one from a hotel. Now moving on to Hobby Lobby. The first thing you're going to need are pins. This is going to keep everything you're making in place. I'm going to choose these. They're $4.99 and it comes with a ton, which is awesome because I tend to lose them. Next up is a measuring tape. You'll be using this every time you sit down to sew. It's very important. This one's $1.99, which is perfect for my budget. Another tool I can't live without is the seam ripper. This is for taking out any of the mistakes that you will invariably make. This one's $1.99. Next up are scissors, very important. This is where you'll spend a little more money, but it's worth it to have a nice sharp pair dedicated to just your fabric. This pair is $14.99. Fiskars is a very popular brand, so you know you can trust them. Moving on to some things that you need for your actual sewing machine. You're going to need needles. What I would suggest starting out with is a set of universal needles. This just works with most fabrics that you're going to be sewing with. Down the line, you can get a little more fancy and get like a knit jersey needle or a denim needle or a stretch needle. Those are specific to the type of fabrics you're working with. But starting with the universal needle should be just fine. This set of needles is $4.99. Also needed for the machine are bobbins. This is going to be where your bottom line of thread comes from. So you have your top line and then the one that comes from underneath the machine, and then they link together as you sew. So these are very important. You're going to need a couple of bobbins. It's nice to have a few. If you have different color threads you're working with, you can leave a spool all rolled up and ready to go in white or black or navy or whatever color you're using. This set of 4 bobbins is $2.49. Lastly, you're going to need thread, of course. In a perfect world, cotton thread would be awesome and strong and durable, but it's just not. So I use polyester thread. Admittedly, it's not best for the planet, but it just works so much better than cotton and it's so much sturdier. I would suggest starting out with a couple of basic colors. If you have any fabric that you know you're going to be using, this is where you could match the thread to the fabric. But if you haven't gotten that far yet, don't worry. I would just grab a spool of white and black to start you out. Today I'm going to buy this ivory thread for $2.99. This is my favorite color. I buy it in bulk whenever they have a sale. And this is the complete list of everything that I feel is totally necessary to start. There are some things I bought later that certainly help, but they're not completely necessary, they're just nice. Within that list is definitely a rotary mat and a rotary cutter. And this is where things can get a little pricey. I was able to thrift all 3 of my cutting mats, which is really awesome because it made it a lot cheaper. And as far as rotary blades go, I use the one from my beginner kit that my mom bought for me. It's not the highest quality, but it's lasted me 2 years of sewing almost every day. The beautiful thing about Hobby Lobby is that almost every other week, their Sewology brand line is half off. I love to shop when there's a sale because they have a lot of amazing products in this line, including all of their thread, their needles, their bobbins. So I love to look ahead of time and make sure that the Sewology stuff is half off before I head to the store. Now let's add everything up. There was an option at my Hobby Lobby of a beginner kit. It comes with quite a lot of materials, including a few extras that I don't deem necessary but are nice to have. This is a super affordable way to get you started, so definitely don't knock it if you're on a budget. If you were to buy the beginner kit, very similar to the route I took, it would be $9.99 for the kit. You would add on your needles, bobbin, and thread, and you would have everything you need to start sewing. And if you were to buy them on a sale week, your total would be $10.21. And you've got everything you need to start sewing. That's crazy. Add on the $25 Singer machine, and you're sitting at $35.21. That is not bad at all. Option 2 is to buy all of the regularly priced items plus the Singer sewing machine that I found at the thrift store. Brings us to a total of $59.43. Option 3 is to buy all of the basic materials on sale and the sewing machine, and our grand total is $49.74. So whatever route you take, you can find thrifty and affordable ways to start sewing. So I'll leave you with a couple tips for beginning to sew on a budget. 1, shop sales, don't buy more than you need. Everything I listed is everything I would buy today if I had to start over again. Number 2, borrow a sewing machine. Buy one off of Facebook Marketplace. This is something I did when I started. I borrowed my friend's mom's sewing machine. So if you don't know a friend or a mom or an aunt or a grandma who has a sewing machine, then you might need to make more friends. You don't need a brand new sewing machine. Someone you know has one. You could borrow one. Number 3, thrift for fabric. This is a great way to start sewing, very risk-free and in an affordable way. I don't buy new fabric because it's expensive, it's wasteful, and it feels a little riskier because of the price. If I make a wrong cut or make a mistake, then I feel the pain a little more deeply than I would if I bought a big piece of fabric at a thrift store for $2. Everything you see on these walls has been thrifted and purchased secondhand. Number 4, watch tutorials on YouTube and get going. The first few projects I made were super basic. I made a sleeping eye mask, and during COVID, I made a couple of face masks. From there, I made a jumpsuit that turned out really badly. I made another one that was a little bit better, and I just kept going. I'd love to make some beginner tutorials soon, as well as a video teaching you some basics on how to sew a seam, how to sew right sides together, basic sewing terminology. So if that's of interest to you, let me know in the comments. If enough people want it, I would try making them. I hope this video inspires you to go out, buy the basic materials, borrow a sewing machine from your mom, and get started. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and leave your thoughts in a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. See you next time. Cheers.